Welcome to Conflict News 24. Several updates for you on the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. It seems on Bakhmut front, Russians have suffered a setback. Russian Wagner, PMC, allied forces seem to have suffered a military setback in the outskirts and eastern part of Bakhmut. Details for you. Secondly, Zelensky was in US at US House of Representatives a few hours ago. There he delivered a speech. What did he say? How is Russia responding to Zelensky's visit? Russian official spokesperson said that US was indirectly part of war. Firstly, Bakhmut. For months, Russian forces, Wagner, PMC, allied forces have been trying to take control of Bakhmut for onward advance towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. But Ukrainians have been trying to defend both Soledar and Bakhmut. And within the past 2 weeks, Russian forces made some gains on Bakhmut front. They managed to enter eastern part of Bakhmut city, which is industrial part of Bakhmut. And we saw geolocated footage of some Russian military presence in eastern part of Bakhmut city, industrial area of Bakhmut. Then on the southern side as well, Russians made some gains. They bypassed Opyatne. They entered Opyatne and they took control of around 80% of Opyatne. They bypassed it. So they were trying to surround Bakhmut. Same was happening on Soledar front as well, that Yakovlevka came under Russian control. They were moving towards Vasile. They were trying to encircle both Soledar and Bakhmut. And their presence very close to Bakhmut was confirmed through geolocated videos. Then came counteroffensives from Ukrainians, and now Russians are no more to be seen in eastern part of Bakhmut city. No Russian military presence in industrial eastern part of Bakhmut city. Geolocated drone footages are being shared from eastern part of Bakhmut, which show no Russian soldiers there, firstly. Secondly, from inside Bakhmut city as well, videos are being shared, pictures being shared, showing no street fighting. There was some street fighting there around 2 to 3 days ago, before Zelensky's visit, but Ukrainians somehow managed to expel Russians away from Bakhmut city. It has been confirmed. And thirdly, Ukrainian forces are back in Opyatne again. Geolocated videos are being shared showing presence of Ukrainian military in Opyatne. So you see that on eastern, southern and northern side, Ukrainian forces have managed to push Russians away from Bakhmut city. Bakhmut is turning into a nightmare for Russians for months. They've been trying to enter Bakhmut, but still no gains. They lost their gains. They had to retreat from their gains in eastern and southern parts of Bakhmut. And around 2 to 3 days ago, Zelensky visited Bakhmut. I think that visit was an indication that Ukrainians were in a strong position on this front. Zelensky was right in Bakhmut city. It means before that, Russians had been expelled out of eastern part of Bakhmut, it seems. That is why Zelensky visited this front. And Zelensky talked about this front at US House as well, and he said that Ukraine's military win on Bakhmut front would start the journey towards Ukraine's independence from Russian forces. So it has now been confirmed through neutral sources that Russians have lost their territorial gains on Bakhmut front. Secondly, viewers, Zelensky was in the US, arrived there. He delivered a speech at US House of Representatives. He was given standing ovation by US lawmakers. And he presented Nancy Pelosi, US House Speaker, and Kamala Harris, US Vice President, with Ukraine's flag. That flag was given to Zelensky by Ukrainian soldiers when Zelensky visited Bakhmut city 3 days ago. Nancy Pelosi gave American flag to Zelensky. Zelensky spoke there. And he said, the money, the assistance, the support being given to Ukraine is not charity. It is investment in international security, global security. For global security, US and other allies are investing. It's not charity for Ukraine. Secondly, he talked about Bakhmut front. He said, as I mentioned, that this military victory on this front would lead to start of momentum. And thirdly, he said, Ukraine will fight all along 1,300-kilometer long front line. Fighting is underway. No matter what happens, Ukraine will never surrender. He thanked Americans. Joe Biden spoke as well, and he said that he had limitations in terms of support. If everything being demanded by Ukraine is given to Ukraine, it could lead to breakup of NATO, breakup of some alliance. It could lead to international security issues. But Ukraine is already receiving a lot. Patriot air defense systems going to arrive in Ukraine in coming days. JDAM kits to convert Ukraine's dumb bombs into precision guided munitions going to arrive in Ukraine, and lots of other types of weaponry already in Ukraine. HIMARS from US, air defense systems, guided artillery, lots of drones as well. So there is no shortage of weapons for Ukraine. Ukraine is receiving weapons. Its soldiers being trained by UK, by other countries. It is receiving financial support. It is receiving intelligence as well. Entire NATO, US, EU are supporting Ukraine. Russia is reacting. Russian government spokesperson today said that US was now involved in this war, indirectly involved in this war. I remember that when Russia invaded Afghanistan in 1979, I think, Americans used jihadis from Afghanistan, from across the world, to counter Russian military offensive on Afghanistan. Pakistani intelligence agencies and jihadis from across the world, they joined hands with US and they fought. US invested, US provided arms support as well. Stinger missiles were given to Afghani fighters that they used effectively against Russian jets. They were trained, they were armed, and that led to Russian defeat in Afghanistan. That was USSR, not Russia back then, and ultimately the USSR broke up. Once again, I think US is adopting the same strategy. It wants continuation of this war. A proxy war is ongoing through Ukraine. US wants to weaken Russia. I think Russia made a strategic blunder when it invaded Ukraine. It had other options available, but it went for this direct confrontation, which is leading to availability of opportunities for Russian rivals to continue armed escalation on Russian borders. Anyway, so it's clear that US is supporting Ukraine financially, economically, militarily. Zelensky is there, and it will go on. Russia is hitting back. Russia is saying that US is now involved indirectly in this war. How is Russia going to respond? Will it try to hit US interests in this region? NATO military assets in this region, or other US interests? That remains to be seen. But Russia is indignant at Zelensky's visit of US and new weapon deliveries announced by US to Ukraine, like air defense systems and other types of weapons. Overall, gradually, the war is turning into US versus Russia, Russia versus NATO. Though from day one, it has been US versus Russia through Ukraine, NATO versus Russia through Ukraine. Now, gradually, things are progressing towards direct escalation, which could be a threat to global security. Already, this war is having impact on economies, on leadership changes across the world, food prices going up, energy prices going up, energy rationing being done in some parts of Europe. If direct confrontation started, it would be deadly for the entire world, especially neighboring countries. Russia is hitting back in terms of statements, but no signs of any direct attack from Russians on US interest. US policy clear. US wants continuation of this war. Europe, weakened economically, is the partner which is not able to dictate terms in this alliance, US-EU alliance. US is in a position to dictate terms, and Zelensky has limited options. Russians will have to find a way to put an end to this conflict. Otherwise, the conflict will weaken Russia. It will give more opportunity to US and NATO to encircle, to get close to Russian borders. Thank you for watching.
Madam Speaker, the President of Ukraine.